My name is Dana Hayes. I'm 35 years old, and right now, I'm staring at the pale, sweat-soaked face of my 7-year-old son, Liam, while machines beep in the background like some haunting melody I can't turn off. The hospital room is cold, sterile, and unforgiving, but I've stopped noticing. All I see is Liam. The rise and fall of his chest is shallow. Too shallow. And every time the monitor beeps irregularly, I flinch. He's been in the pediatric ICU for 2 days now, and I haven't left his side. I can't. I won't. I know I should eat, sleep, shower, do something normal. But when your child is hooked up to machines that are breathing for him, nothing about your life is normal. My phone buzzes beside me. I don't even need to look. I know who it is. Mom. The third time she's called today. I already know what she wants. To understand why a phone call from my mother in the middle of a crisis feels like a second emergency, you need to know the backstory. Because none of this started here, in this hospital room. It started with expectations. I was raised in suburban Connecticut, the second of two daughters in a house where everything had a place and people were expected to stay in theirs. My mother, Diane, was the president of the PDA, the head of the Homeowners Association, and the self-appointed social queen of Willow Creek Estates. Growing up with Diane meant your hair was never out of place, your voice never too loud, and your smile always photogenic. Emotions weren't encouraged unless they were pretty. My sister, Candace, flourished under that rulebook. Straight-A student, prom queen, now a lifestyle influencer with 2 kids, a golden retriever, and a husband who makes 7 figures. She still lives 10 minutes from my parents' place and has dinner with them every Sunday. Then there was me. Messy, emotional, artistic. I didn't want a white picket fence. I wanted to paint murals, travel the world, fall in love deeply and dangerously. And I did. I met Jay when I was 22. He was everything my mother hated. Tattooed, spontaneous, a struggling musician. But he loved me, really loved me. We moved to Denver and lived on ramen noodles and dreams for 3 years until Liam came along, and everything changed. Jay tried. He did. But fatherhood was a different kind of responsibility, one he wasn't ready for. He started disappearing for days at a time, then weeks. When Liam was 2, I packed our things and moved back to Connecticut. Mom said, "I told you so," before she said, "Welcome home." Her version of helping involved passive-aggressive comments about my parenting and unsolicited job leads. But when she offered to help pay for Liam's school and medical insurance, I accepted. I had to. Freelancing as a children's book illustrator didn't exactly cover private tuition and copays. The deal was simple. I'd attend family dinners, maintain appearances, and show gratitude. But gratitude, to my mother, was code for obedience. When I missed Candace's baby shower because Liam had RSV, I was told I was being melodramatic. When I arrived late to Thanksgiving because of a pediatrician appointment, I got icy silence and a lecture about time management. Still, I endured. Because Liam deserved stability. He loved his school, his teachers, and his weekly science club. He had friends. He was thriving. Until 4 days ago. What started as a mild fever and a sore throat turned into a nightmare. At first, I thought it was just a bug. But by Tuesday morning, Liam was shivering uncontrollably, pale as a ghost, and couldn't keep anything down. I rushed him to the ER. Within an hour, they told me it was sepsis. His blood pressure had dropped dangerously low. His organs were struggling. They moved him to the ICU immediately. I watched them intubate him, listened to medical terms I barely understood, and signed papers with shaking hands. Since then, I've been living in a purgatory of fluorescent lights and fear. Nurses come and go. Doctors update me in cautious, hopeful tones. But I see it in their eyes. The worry, the urgency. And through it all, the phone buzzes. Mom. This time I answer. I'm too exhausted to brace for the emotional onslaught. Dana, she says, in her brisk, clipped voice, I've been trying to reach you. The caterer needs a final head count for Candace's birthday brunch. You didn't RSVP.
My throat goes dry.
I blink at Liam, whose face is a pale mask of sleep, wires trailing from his arms. I'm in the hospital, Mom. With Liam. He's in the ICU. Yes, I know. And that's unfortunate. But he's stable, isn't he? No, I say, the word coming out harsher than I intended. He's not. He's on life support. Silence. Then, Dana, I'm not unsympathetic. But life has to go on. The brunch is Sunday. Candace is turning 40. 40, Dana. It's a milestone. I close my eyes. This isn't new. This is textbook Diane Hayes. But I can't leave him, I whisper. I'm not asking you to leave him for the whole day. Just come for the brunch. Make an appearance. People will ask where you are. Let them, I say. Let them ask. I'm not leaving my son. Another silence. Then the real message comes through, masked in sugar, but laced with threat. Well, if you choose to isolate yourself from your family, I can't be expected to continue offering the level of support we've been providing. That private school costs money, Dana. There it is. The financial leash. The invisible collar around my neck. I'm not leaving him, I repeat. Then you're choosing, she snaps. And choices have consequences. I hang up. For a long moment, I sit in the stiff vinyl hospital chair, staring at Liam.
He doesn't know any of this.
Doesn't know that while his little body fights to stay alive, the people who should care most are more concerned with mimosas and Instagram photos. And in that moment, something inside me shifts. I may lose the money, the school, the safety net, but I will not lose my integrity. Not again. Not for her. Not at the cost of my son. The hallway outside Liam's room is quiet. Quiet in that thick, hospital way, where the silence is never complete. There's always a distant beep, the soft shuffle of rubber soles, the low murmur of voices behind curtains. But compared to the roar in my head, it feels like a void. I step outside for air, barely realizing I brought my phone with me. My legs shake beneath me, partly from lack of sleep, partly from the emotional whiplash of that call. She made it sound like a choice between a brunch and a child's life, as if both carried equal weight. I scroll through my messages. Nothing from Candace. No, how's Liam? No, do you need anything? Just a mass email reminder from her assistant about color coordination for the birthday seating chart. Color coordination. I scroll further, hoping, maybe foolishly, that someone else from the family has reached out. Nothing. I lean against the wall, sliding down until I'm sitting on the tile floor. I'm not crying, not yet, but I feel the familiar sting behind my eyes. The kind that comes when you've been too strong for too long. A nurse passing by slows. You okay, hon? Her name tag says Rachel. Mid-40s. Tired eyes but kind. I will be, I say. Take your time. I've got some juice boxes and graham crackers in the family lounge if you want something light. Thanks, I say, and she smiles before walking on. It hits me then, how the people who've shown me the most compassion in these last 48 hours are strangers. Not my family, not the people who claim blood ties, but nurses, hospital techs, a janitor who brought me a pillow yesterday when I was half asleep in the chair. I return to Liam's room and sit again by his bed. He looks smaller than he ever has. His hand, pale and limp, rests on top of the blanket, and I carefully thread my fingers through his, careful not to dislodge the four. I'm still here, baby, I whisper. I'm not going anywhere. A soft knock on the door startles me. For a split second, I expect to see my mother standing there, perfectly coiffed, arms crossed, lips pursed in judgment. But it's not her. It's someone I never expected to see here.
Zara.
My best friend from college. We drifted after graduation, life pulling us in different directions. She moved to Atlanta. I got pregnant. There was always love, just not time. She's standing in the doorway with a backpack slung over one shoulder and 2 coffees in her hand. I saw your post, she says softly. I blink. You flew here? You said Liam was sick. I didn't realize how sick until I saw the update. I booked the next flight. Didn't even pack a real bag. Tears rush to my eyes. The dam breaks. I stand, stumble toward her, and she wraps me in a hug that's so familiar it makes something in me collapse. I didn't think anyone would come, I whisper into her shoulder. Of course I came, she says fiercely. You're my person. And he's your heart. That makes him mine too. She stays for hours. Sits beside me, brushes Liam's hair back, and tells stories to fill the silence. At one point, she takes my phone and scrolls through my unread messages with a raised brow. She really said you're using this moment to be dramatic, she says after reading my mother's latest text. I nod. Her words, not mine. I'm glad I brought tequila, she mutters, rummaging through her bag and pulling out a small bottle. Emergency kit. We don't drink it, obviously, but the gesture is enough to make me smile for the first time in days. That night, when Zara checks into a nearby motel, promising to return first thing in the morning, I sit back in the hospital recliner and exhale deeply. There's power in being seen. In being loved not because you're useful or obedient, but because you're you. The next morning, Liam's vitals have improved slightly. The doctors say it's still critical but less volatile. Whatever that means, I'll take it. Dr. Miller, the lead pediatrician, gives me the update gently. He's young and strong, she says. And he's got a mom who hasn't left his side. That matters. I don't tell her how close I came to being forced away, how close I still am to losing the financial support that underpins our entire lives. Instead, I say, thank you, and return to my son. Later that afternoon, as I'm sitting beside Liam, telling him about the time we went to the planetarium, and he kept asking the guide why Pluto wasn't a planet anymore, my phone lights up again. Candace. For a moment, I hesitate. Then I answer. Dana, she says quickly. Hey, I just wanted to check in. I pause, stunned by the fact that she's even calling. He's stable, I say. Still intubated. Still sedated. But stable. Oh. A beat of silence. Then, I didn't realize it was that serious. Mom said he just had a bad infection. That you were overreacting again. I don't answer. I mean, I told her that was probably unfair, she adds. But you know how she gets. Yes, I say quietly. I do. More silence. I'm sorry, she says finally. About all of it. The party's still happening, she insisted. But I told her I wasn't comfortable celebrating while you're going through this. Something tightens in my chest. Gratitude? Maybe. Or just the relief of being believed. Thanks, I say. And I mean it. I'll come by after the brunch, she adds quickly. Maybe bring you dinner? That'd be nice. It's not a reconciliation. Not yet. But it's something. A crack in the ice. That evening, after a long day of subtle improvements and cautious hope, I sit by Liam's bed and hold his hand. You're not alone, I whisper to him. We're not alone anymore. Outside the window, the city lights flicker. Somewhere in a banquet hall across town, people are raising glasses to Candace's perfect 40th birthday, toasting her new endorsement deal, complimenting the floral arrangements. But here, in this room, something far more important is happening. A boy is fighting his way back to life. And a mother is learning that love, real love, is quiet, stubborn, and unshakable, even when it means letting go of everything else. By Sunday morning, the day of the brunch, the hallway outside Liam's ICU room feels oddly still. The chaos of Friday night, the emergency alarms, the tense faces, the rush of machines and people, has given way to a quieter kind of intensity. Liam's oxygen levels have improved slightly. His fever hasn't spiked in nearly 12 hours. The nurses call that progress. I call it hope, fragile as a soap bubble. Zara returns with 2 coffees and a bag of mini muffins. She's bleary-eyed but smiling, hair tied up in a messy bun, hoodie wrinkled from sleeping in a motel bed. He looks stronger, she says, peering down at Liam's sleeping face. His color's better. I nod. He moved his fingers again during the night. Just a twitch, but still, she says. That's your boy coming back. I sip my coffee, grateful beyond words for her presence. She doesn't press, doesn't ask questions I can't answer, just exists beside me like a lighthouse in a fog I didn't know I was drowning in. Around noon, I get a text from Candace. Just finished the brunch. I saved you some cake. Can I come by around 3? I respond with a simple, yes. I'm still digesting the fact that she came to her senses enough to check in again. It's like watching a cracked dam slowly leak empathy. Not a flood, but more than I expected. I glance at my phone and, to my surprise, see that my Venmo account has a notification. I open it and blink. $150. From Candace. Note, for snacks. Or therapy. Or tequila. Whatever you need. I actually laugh. Not a bitter, ironic laugh. A real one. She just sent me money, I say, showing Zara the message. Zara grins. Well, color me shocked. Maybe the human chip finally activated. She said it's for therapy or tequila. Or both, Zara says. Combo pack. At 2:55, there's a soft knock on the hospital room door. I open it and find Candace standing there in a tailored trench coat, her blonde curls smoothed to perfection. But her eyes look tired.
Real.
I brought sandwiches, she says, holding up a paper bag from our favorite deli downtown. Thanks, I say, stepping aside to let her in. She sets the food on the windowsill and walks slowly to Liam's bedside. Her perfectly manicured hand hovers just above his blanket. He's so small, she murmurs. He's always been small, I say. Just not like this. She nods, eyes glistening. I told Mom I wasn't going to her post-brunch tea, she says. She threw a fit. I raise an eyebrow. Of course she did. She said I was falling for your melodrama. That if Liam was really that sick, you'd have called days ago. I told her maybe she wasn't the safest person to call. I stare at her. That's a sentence I didn't expect from you. She shrugs, sitting in the empty chair beside me. I think I just got tired, she says, of pretending she's normal, of trying to keep the peace by ignoring the war. We eat sandwiches in silence for a while. Across the room, the machines hum and beep, tracking every heartbeat, every breath Liam takes with quiet diligence. Candace finally breaks the silence. I was jealous of you when we were kids, you know. I nearly choke on my sandwich. What? You didn't care what she thought, she says. You made your own rules. You wore combat boots to Easter brunch. I got grounded for a month.
Still.
You were brave. I just did what was expected. I got straight A's, married the right guy, had the perfect wedding. But I don't think I've ever really made a choice that was mine. You're making one now, I say gently. She looks down at her lap, lips trembling. She threatened to cut off my kids' trust fund if I kept talking to you. Jesus. I told her to go ahead. That if her love came with strings, I'd rather untangle us now than get strangled later. A silence falls between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. It's the kind of silence that only comes when someone is finally telling the truth. She said Liam would be fine, that kids bounce back, that you were using this to make yourself a victim again. She looks up, anger flashing across her face. I don't know what's wrong with her. I do, I say. She's afraid. Of what? Of anything she can't control. Candace exhales shakily. She can't control this, she says, nodding toward Liam's bed.
No.
And that makes it easier for her to pretend it's not real. After she leaves, I check my voicemail for the first time in 2 days. There are 7 new messages. All from my mother. I listened to the first one, just out of curiosity. Dana, I'm disappointed. I've told everyone you're going through a hard time, but frankly, this has gone too far. You're making a scene. And Candace needs her sister. This is about more than just you and your son. I delete it. The second message starts with a sigh and ends with another thinly veiled thread about reconsidering our generosity.
Delete.
By the 4th one, she's crying. By the 6th, she's cold again. The 7th is silent for a long time. Then, I raised you better than this. I don't listen to the rest. I delete them all. I sit back in my chair and look at Liam. His eyelids flutter slightly. The nurses say that's a good sign. Maybe it is. I lean in close to him, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. I'm not going back, you know, I whisper. Not to that life. Not to that version of me. His hand twitches in mine. I squeeze it gently. We'll figure it out.
Just you and me.
We don't need their conditions. We never did. The next morning, the shift nurse Maya greets me with a warm smile and a clipboard in her hands. Her long braids are pulled back into a high bun, and there's a quiet confidence in the way she moves. You're hanging in there, she says, gently adjusting Liam's foreline. I think so, I answer, though I'm not sure the words are true. Maya watches me for a beat before speaking again. He looks better today. He does, I whisper. He squeezed my finger again this morning. Not a twitch, like a real squeeze. That's amazing. She leans in closer to Liam, her voice soft and upbeat. You hear that, superstar? Your mama noticed. Keep fighting. She straightens, then turns back to me. Dr. Patel is going to do another respiratory evaluation in an hour. We'll see how close he is to coming off the ventilator. My heart pounds at the thought. Hope is dangerous, but it's also addictive. I nod. After she leaves, I sit with Liam, telling him the story of how he lost his first tooth on the swings at the park and insisted we bury it like treasure instead of putting it under his pillow. Do you remember? I whisper. We drew a treasure map and everything. His eyelids twitch again, and his fingers curl just a little more firmly around mine. It's enough. A little after noon, Dr. Patel enters with 2 residents in tow. He's younger than Dr. Miller, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that always makes me feel less like I'm drowning. We're going to run some weaning tests, he says. See how well Liam initiates breaths with reduced assistance. If all goes well, we could remove the ventilator later today. I nod, too scared to speak. They begin the process. It's slow and tense, the room filled with the rhythmic whoosh of air and the gentle murmur of medical instructions. I sit absolutely still, clutching Liam's hand like a lifeline. At some point, Maya returns with a second nurse to assist. She looks over at me and mouths, "You're doing great." I'm not sure if she means me or Liam. Maybe both. After an hour, Dr. Patel straightens and removes his gloves. He's doing well, he says. Not perfect, but well enough. We're going to extubate him this afternoon. I nod again, a fresh wave of tears filling my eyes. Thank you. God, thank you. Don't thank me, he says. Thank your kid. He's a fighter. By late afternoon, the team is ready. They explain the steps again, even though I already know them by heart. I've Googled them in every sleepless hour of the night. I stand at Liam's bedside, one hand on his shoulder, the other holding his hand. The removal is quick but not painless. Liam coughs, gags, then breathes, a raw, raspy sound that's still the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. He blinks slowly, eyes fluttering open just enough to focus on me. Hey, baby, I whisper. You're okay. You're safe. I'm right here. He tries to speak, but no sound comes out, just a breathy exhale. Shh, I say gently. Don't talk yet. Just rest. He nods, almost imperceptibly, and closes his eyes again. After the team leaves, Maya lingers a moment longer.
He's over the hill now, she says.
Still needs rest, but you're through the worst. I don't say anything. I just sit down, press my forehead to Liam's hand, and let the tears fall freely. That evening, Zara comes back with Chinese takeout and a bottle of ginger ale. You look like someone who needs spring rolls, she says. I smile for real this time. I might marry a spring roll. We eat on the windowsill while Liam sleeps soundly in the bed behind us, now connected only to monitors and a nasal cannula for supplemental oxygen. The room smells faintly of antiseptic and soy sauce. I don't think I've said it, I tell her, but I don't know how I'd have done this without you. She waves me off.
Please.
You'd have done it. You're a freaking oak tree. I don't feel like one. Doesn't matter. You are. We sit in companionable silence for a while. I scroll through photos on my phone. Pictures of Liam building a Lego dinosaur, eating an ice cream cone the size of his head, dancing in the kitchen in mismatched socks. I think everything's about to change. I say, finally. Zara doesn't ask me what I mean. She just nods.
Yeah.
It already has. The next morning, Dr. Miller returns with a smile that borders on triumphant. He's stable enough to move out of the ICU tomorrow, she announces. It feels like a victory parade. I call Candace. She actually cheers on the phone. I'll tell the boys, she says. They've been asking about their cousin.
My chest tightens at that.
They can come visit after we're in the pediatric wing. I'll bring art supplies, she promises. Maybe we'll all draw him something. When we hang up, I see another text come in. From a number I don't recognize. But the area code is local. I open it. Hi, Dana. This is Kristen. I heard about Liam from my daughter Lily. She's in his class. I'm organizing a food drop-off schedule and a school fundraiser to help with any medical costs. No pressure at all. But let us know what you need. We're all rooting for you. Below the text is a link to a page titled, Team Liam, Help a Little Fighter Heal. There's already $1,340 raised. I sit back, stunned. Not because of the money, though it will help, but because people saw us.
Saw Liam.
And they showed up. People I barely know. While my own mother is still sending icy voicemails about social consequences. I don't even know what to do with that. So I decide not to think about her at all. Not today. Today is for Liam. And the family we're slowly discovering, one kind gesture at a time. Liam was moved out of the ICU the next day. The transition from the critical care ward to the regular pediatric unit was both exhilarating and terrifying. No more round-the-clock monitors. No more two nurse teams stationed outside the door. Just a single bed in a smaller, quieter room with cartoon decals on the walls and a fold-out chair for me to sleep on. He was awake more now, though still groggy and weak. His throat was raw from the ventilator, his voice a scratchy whisper. But he could speak. He could smile. He could hold my hand without needing machines to do it for him. The first thing he said after we were alone in the new room was, "Can I still go to the dinosaur museum?" I laughed so hard I startled a passing nurse. "You're unbelievable," I said, brushing his curls from his forehead. "You scare the life out of me, and your first concern is fossils." "They're not just fossils," he whispered solemnly. "They're clues." I kissed his hand. "You're right, baby. And we'll go, just as soon as you're strong enough to walk the whole thing without needing a nap." Zara returned with a coloring book and snacks, and even Candace dropped by with her kids, Liam's cousins, who stood nervously by the doorway until Liam called out in his hoarse voice, "Hey, come look at my robot monitor." Soon they were laughing, whispering, and poking around the bed with the kind of curiosity only children can make feel sacred. They left an hour later, promising to come back with more drawings. When I stepped into the hallway with Candace to say goodbye, she turned to me. "You've got a tribe forming," she said, half teasing. "Might want to start a loyalty card. Every 10 casseroles gets you a bonus hug?" Something like that. She paused before continuing. "I spoke to Mom."
Of course she did.
My stomach tensed. "She's furious," Candace continued. "Says you're manipulating everyone. That you're making a mountain out of a molehill." My jaw tightened. "She ever actually ask how Liam's doing?" "No," Candace said quietly. "She just talks about herself. About how embarrassed she was at the brunch because you didn't show up. About the whispers. About having to explain your absence." I closed my eyes. "Of course. But I told her I'm done being her mouthpiece," Candace added, voice firmer now. "I told her what I saw with my own eyes. And if she doesn't want to believe her own grandson nearly died, that's on her. Not me.
Not you."
I looked at her then, really looked at her, the once perfect sister I used to resent so bitterly. And I saw the cracks forming, but not in a way that made her weak. In a way that let light in. "You've changed," I said. "Maybe," she replied. "Maybe I'm just finally becoming someone I actually like." Before she left, she handed me an envelope. "I know you're figuring things out," she said. This might help, just for now. Inside was a check. More than I expected. Enough to buy us time. Candace. I'm not my mother, she said. And you don't owe me anything for this. It took everything in me not to cry again. That evening, Thomas called.
Dad.
He never liked the title, Grandpa. Said it made him feel like a character in a children's book. He preferred his name. I heard Liam's improving, he said, voice quiet and steady. He is, I said. Thanks for checking in. Can I come see him tomorrow? The question hit me like a soft punch. He hadn't been by since the ICU transfer, and I'd assumed, wrongly, that he was waiting on Margaret's permission to show up. Of course you can, I said, after a stunned pause. He'd love that. There was a rustle on the other end of the line. I left, Thomas said. What do you mean? I packed a suitcase, booked a hotel, and left. I told your mother I needed air. But the truth is, I needed peace. I sank onto the chair beside Liam's bed, phone pressed to my ear. You left her.
For now, he said.
Maybe for good.
I don't know yet. I didn't speak.
She said I had to choose. Between her and the chaos you've created. But I've seen the chaos up close now. And it's love. Fierce, messy love. And I think maybe I've spent too long choosing peace at the cost of truth. I couldn't respond. I just held the phone to my ear as tears slipped silently down my cheeks. I'll bring Liam his favorite science book tomorrow, Thomas added. The one about volcanoes. He'll love that, I whispered. Tell him I'm proud of him. And of you. I will. When the call ended, I turned back to my son, curled up in the hospital bed, chest rising and falling with his own breath, no machines to force it. He was here. He was healing. And the world around us, once so carefully crafted by my mother's expectations, was beginning to reshape itself. Not into something perfect, but into something real. Thomas arrived the next morning just after breakfast, holding a canvas tote bag stuffed with books, a small potted plant, and a familiar worn blanket from Liam's bed at home. I figured he might sleep better with something that smells like home, he said, setting the blanket on the edge of the hospital bed. Liam's eyes lit up. Hi, Thomas, he rasped, his voice still weak but stronger than yesterday. Hey, champ, Thomas said gently. You scared the socks off all of us. Liam gave a small smile. Mom says I fought like a T-Rex. You sure did. Thomas read to him for nearly an hour, his deep voice turning the volcano book into a grand epic. Liam leaned back on his pillow, eyes wide, listening to every word. Occasionally, he'd reach out and touch the pages, as if making sure the story was real. I sat across from them, hands folded in my lap, heart full. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we were moving toward something better. When Liam eventually dozed off mid-sentence, Thomas lowered the book and looked at me. I meant what I said last night, he said quietly. About needing peace. About you being brave. I nodded, not trusting my voice. You know, when your mother and I first married, she was electric, ambitious, always planning, always achieving. But after her father died, something inside her hardened. Control became the only way she knew to cope. I remember, I said. That's when she started color-coding our cereal. Thomas chuckled softly. She loved you. Loves you still, I think. But in her own very complicated, very conditional way. It's the conditional part that broke me, I admitted. He looked down, rubbing his hands together. I should have done more. I should have spoken up. But I always thought silence was the same as stability. I see now it wasn't. I don't blame you, I said, surprising myself. I blame myself enough, he replied. But I want to do better. Be better. For you. For Liam. You're already doing that. He stayed most of the day, only leaving when Liam was too tired to stay awake and the nurses suggested rest without stimulation. Before he left, he pressed a slim envelope into my palm. I looked at him, eyebrows raised. Don't open it now, he said. Just something I've been planning for a while. That night, after Liam fell asleep and the floor lights dimmed, I opened the envelope. Inside was a simple letter, handwritten in my father's neat, slanted print. Dana, I've spoken to my lawyer. I'm setting up a trust in Liam's name. It won't cover everything, but it will ensure he's taken care of: school, healthcare, a little extra for whatever future he wants to chase. It's the least I can do. You've carried so much alone. It's time someone stood beside you. I'm sorry it took me this long to step out of her shadow. Love.
Dad.
Tucked inside was a check for an initial deposit. More than I ever expected. Enough to breathe again. I sat in the quiet dark, letter pressed to my chest, and cried. But this time, they weren't tears of fear or grief. They were tears of relief, of recognition, of grace. The next morning brought more good news. Liam's oxygen levels were holding steady, and he'd managed to eat half a banana and a few spoonfuls of yogurt. The nurses praised him like he'd just scaled Everest. Progress isn't always loud, Maya said as she adjusted his four. Sometimes it's a single bite of banana that tells us everything. By mid-afternoon, Liam was sitting up more easily. He asked if he could draw, so I handed him the notebook Zara had brought. He gripped the crayon like it weighed 10 pounds, but started scribbling determinedly. What are you drawing? I asked.
Our family, he said.
I leaned over, heart warm. The picture showed stick figures, some obvious, like me and him, his cousins, Candace. One had a long braid I recognized immediately as Maya. Another wore glasses, like Dr. Patel. Zara was there too, her curly hair drawn with swirls of red. But there was no sign of my mother. I didn't mention it. Neither did he. That afternoon, I got a text from Heather, my cousin. Heard from your mom. She's telling everyone you're exploiting Liam's illness for attention. Just wanted you to know I don't believe her. Another message followed. Also, tell Liam his dinosaur drawing is on our fridge. My daughter thinks he's a real paleontologist. I replied with a heart emoji and a simple, thank you. Because what else was there to say? The family I was born into might be cracking apart, but the family we were choosing, the one showing up, calling, delivering casseroles and drawing pictures, was growing stronger every day. On the 6th night in the pediatric ward, I woke to the sound of soft breathing. I looked over and saw Liam, eyes closed, arms curled around his blanket, sleeping peacefully. I checked the monitors, all in normal range. The silence was warm, not empty. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Karen, from Willow Elementary. I heard about Liam. I run the PDA fund. We're doing a book drive in his honor. Let us know his favorite titles. I smiled. The old life, the one ruled by image, approval, reputation, was behind us now. It had to be. We were moving forward, step by painful, beautiful step. And this new life, uncertain and imperfect as it was, already felt more honest than anything I'd ever known. By the end of the week, the hospital staff started talking about discharge. Not in vague, hopeful tones like before, but with actual timelines.
Checklists.
Printed instructions. Liam's lungs had cleared enough that he no longer needed supplemental oxygen. His fever had stayed away. He was eating solid food in small portions. His blood work was almost back to normal. He even stood for a few minutes on his own, gripping the bed rail for support, cheeks flushed with effort. Strongest kid on this floor, Maya said, smiling as she helped him settle back into bed. You're gonna be out of here in no time. Liam looked at me, eyes wide. Can I sleep in my own bed? Soon, I said, brushing the hair from his forehead. Very soon. And suddenly, the room I'd grown used to, the beeping monitors, the pale curtains, the antiseptic smell, felt like a holding cell we were about to be released from. I should have been ecstatic. But the truth was I was scared. Because as long as we were here, we were safe, watched over, surrounded by doctors and nurses who knew what to do if something went wrong. Out there, back in the world, we'd be alone again. At least, that's how it felt. Until the next visitor arrived. It was nearly 7 p.m. when the knock came. I opened the door and immediately froze.
Diane.
My mother. She stood in the hallway in a sleek navy coat, holding a bouquet of white roses and a gift bag. Her makeup was perfect, lipstick precise. But she looked thinner. Tired. Her mouth tightened the moment she saw me. "May I come in?" she asked. Every cell in my body screamed to shut the door. But something, curiosity, maybe, made me step aside. She walked in, looking around like she expected to find dust or disorder. Liam sat up when he saw her. "Grandma?" She smiled stiffly. "Hello, darling." He looked confused. "Are you here for a checkup?" "No," I said quickly. "She's visiting." My mother approached the bed and placed the roses on the windowsill. "I brought you something," she said, handing him the gift bag. He opened it with effort, pulling out a hardcover dinosaur encyclopedia, glossy, oversized, with pop-ups and flaps. His eyes lit up.
Cool.
She smiled again. "I thought you'd like that." And then, as if her obligation had been fulfilled, she turned to me. "We should talk." I motioned toward the hallway. No way was I having that conversation in front of Liam. Once we were outside, the door quietly closed behind us. She crossed her arms. "I came to see for myself."
What?
"That he's actually sick," I said, voice low but sharp. Her mouth tightened. "Don't start." "No, really, I'm curious. Were you hoping he'd be playing hopscotch and faking the oxygen tank?" "That's not fair. Neither is expecting me to abandon my son in the ICU for a birthday party." She let out a breath. It was an important day for the family. I stared at her. "He almost died." "I know that now," she said. Candace filled me in. "But you didn't exactly explain things." "I didn't have to," I snapped. "I told you he was in the ICU. I told you he was on life support." You've always had a flair for the dramatic. That sentence, so familiar, so venomous in its casual cruelty, landed like a slap. "I'm done," I said.
With this.
"With you. With pretending this is a relationship." Her face paled. "You need me more than you think," she said quietly. "That apartment isn't cheap. And public school. We'll manage. And what about your job? Freelance art isn't exactly stable, Dana." "No," I said, voice shaking with rage. "But I'd rather struggle honestly than succeed under your conditions." A long silence passed between us. She looked at me like I was someone she'd never quite managed to shape. "I always did what I thought was best for you." "No," I said. "You did what looked best for you. Not what felt best. Not what was kind. What was impressive." She blinked once. Slowly. Then nodded. "I see you've made up your mind." "I have." She didn't say goodbye when she left. Just walked down the hallway, heels echoing off the tile, bouquet and gift now serving as props in her performance of maternal concern. I stood there long after she disappeared around the corner. For the first time in my life, I felt clean. That night, Liam and I curled up in his hospital bed, the dinosaur encyclopedia spread open between us. His voice was still raspy, but his curiosity hadn't dimmed. "Did you know some people think birds are just modern dinosaurs?" he whispered. "I've heard rumors," I whispered back. He giggled softly, then yawned. "Mama?" "Yeah." "Are we going home soon?" "Tomorrow, baby." He nodded, eyelids heavy. "Good. I miss my window." I smiled. "Your window?" "To see the moon before bed." I kissed his forehead. "We'll open it first thing when we get back." We were discharged the next morning. The hospital room that had become our cocoon for nearly 2 weeks now looked foreign, stripped of our things. No books on the windowsill, no stuffed dinosaur on the bed. Just white sheets and a scent of antiseptic that clung to the air like the memory of fear. Liam wore his favorite sweatshirt, the one with a faded tee, Rex, and a ketchup stain on the sleeve. His steps were wobbly, but determined, like someone learning to trust gravity again. Zara came to help us pack up. She brought a wheeled suitcase and a bag of chocolate chip muffins. "For the victory lap," she said, handing Liam one, which he immediately took 2 bites of before falling asleep in the wheelchair they brought for his exit. A nurse named Ava pushed him to the hospital entrance while I walked beside them. I recognized every hallway now, every stain on the floor tiles, every scratch on the wall. As we passed the nurse's station, Maya waved from behind the desk. "Take care of yourself, Mama Bear," she said. I smiled and nodded, my throat too tight for words. Outside, Thomas stood by his car, trunk open, engine running. He lifted Liam into the back seat with a gentleness that made my heart ache. Once we were all settled, he looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Home?" he asked. I nodded. As we drove, Liam dozed off, his hand resting in mine. The city passed by in slow motion, schoolyards, gas stations, a familiar grocery store. The world felt unchanged. But I wasn't. Neither was my son. At the apartment, Amber was waiting with a bouquet of wildflowers and a sign that read "Welcome Home, Liam," in multicolored marker. Someone had drawn cartoon dinosaurs dancing across the edges. "Hi, sweetie," she whispered to Liam as Thomas helped him out of the car. "We missed you so much." Liam gave a sleepy wave and asked, "Do I get a party?" Amber laughed. "You better believe it." Inside, the apartment was spotless, cleaner than I'd left it. A team of neighbors and friends had clearly been through, leaving behind a fridge full of labeled meals, stacks of clean towels, and a vase of sunflowers on the kitchen counter. There was a card taped to the fridge from Kelly, the mom I'd met in the ICU hallway. Inside, a handwritten note. "Still here if you ever need to talk. We don't always get to pick our families, but we can build our own. One fight at a time." I stood in the middle of the kitchen, overwhelmed. Zara came up behind me and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" "I don't know," I whispered. "I think so." That first night home was hard. Liam cried out twice in his sleep, tangled in his sheets, gasping like he was still fighting invisible machines. I sat beside him until he calmed, humming a lullaby I used to sing when he was a baby. "I'm here," I whispered again and again. "I'm right here." By dawn, he finally settled into a deeper sleep. I watched the light begin to filter in through the window he'd missed so much. When he woke that morning, he pulled back the curtains with shaky hands and grinned. "I missed you," he whispered to the moon, still visible in the early sky. Over the next week, we rebuilt routines slowly. Short walks around the block. Afternoon movies under a blanket on the couch. Soft foods and check-ins from nurses. Liam's strength returned one nap at a time. Thomas visited daily. Sometimes with groceries. Sometimes with books. Once with a surprise telescope that made Liam squeal. "I told him we'd name the first star we find together," he said. Zara flew back to Atlanta the following weekend but promised to come back soon. Before she left, she handed me a small box. "What is it?" I asked. "Emergency bravery kit," she said. "Open it when you need to remember who you are." Inside were a candle, a bath bomb shaped like a dinosaur egg, and a note that said, "She tried to bury you, but you were a seed." On Wednesday, Candace invited us over for dinner. "I know it's soon," she said over the phone, "but the boys miss their cousin, and I think we could all use a quiet evening." I hesitated. "You don't have to say yes," she added quickly. I want to start fresh. Or at least try." I looked over at Liam, who was coloring in his notebook. He'd drawn another family portrait, this time with even more stick figures, including Maya, Thomas, Kelly, and a new one with bright red hair labeled Z. He looked up at me. "Can I go play with the boys?" I smiled. "Yeah, baby. I think that would be good." So we went. Candace's house was as polished as ever, but the energy felt different. Warmer. Less rehearsed. Dinner was simple, spaghetti and garlic bread, and Candace insisted on doing the dishes herself. As I sat on the back porch watching the boys play in the yard, she joined me with 2 cups of tea. "I never asked," she said. "How are you really doing?" I looked at her, unsure if it was a trap, but her eyes were soft, open. "I'm still holding my breath," I admitted, "but I'm learning to exhale again." She nodded. "I want to be part of that. If you'll let me." The vulnerability in her voice was new, fragile, but real. "I'd like that," I said. And in that moment, I felt something shift. Forgiveness didn't erase the past, but it made room for the future. 2 weeks after we returned home, Liam's pediatrician cleared him for half-days at school. He might tire easily, she warned, but it'll be good for his spirit. That morning, he put on his school shoes with more excitement than I'd seen in months. He insisted on carrying his own backpack, even though I had to hold the straps as we walked to the car. His classmates welcomed him like a hero. There were handmade cards, a giant poster that read "We missed you, Liam," and a basket of dinosaur-themed goodies labeled the Jurassic Comeback Kit. Liam beamed the whole time, waving like royalty, clutching my hand as tightly as ever. Ms. Jennings, his teacher, pulled me aside. "We kept his desk exactly as it was," she whispered. "The kids wouldn't let us move anything. They said he was coming back." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Thank you. It wasn't just a school re-entry. It was a reintroduction to life. Back home, I made myself coffee and finally opened my laptop. My inbox was a mess, over 300 unread emails, most from clients asking about deadlines I'd long missed. One subject line stood out. "Still interested in the full-time remote illustrator role?" I clicked it open, heart racing. It was from an art director I'd met at a conference nearly a year ago. She'd loved my portfolio, but hadn't had a spot for me then. Now she did. 40 hours per week. Fully remote. Health benefits. Stable pay. Flexible schedule. "Let me know if you're available for a call this week." I blinked at the screen. Stability. On my terms. I scheduled the call immediately. The call went well. Better than well. By the end of the 30-minute conversation, I had a formal offer in my inbox. I accepted it the same day. I told Thomas over lunch. "Congratulations," he said, raising his coffee cup in a toast. "That's incredible. I can finally stand on my own," I said. "You've always been standing," he replied. "This just means fewer people trying to push you over." Candace texted me later that night. "I told Mom about your job offer." I stared at the message, dreading what came next. "She said it won't last. That you'll come crawling back when it gets hard." Of course she did. I didn't reply right away. I let the words settle, let them slide off me like water off armor. Then I sent one line back. "Tell her I don't crawl anymore." Liam was gaining strength quickly. After school, we'd take walks to the park. He liked sitting on the swings, letting his feet drag through the mulch, watching the birds overhead. "Do you think dinosaurs would have liked playgrounds?" he asked one day. "Maybe," I said. "They probably would have broken the slides, though." He giggled. "Except raptors. They're small."
True.
"But raptors on a merry-go-round might be dangerous." He smiled, then looked up at me. "Do we have to see Grandma soon?" The question stopped me cold. "Not unless you want to," I said carefully. He shook his head. "She doesn't like when I'm messy." "No," I said softly. "She doesn't. She told me to sit still at Candace's party last year. Said I was too loud." I swallowed hard. "You don't ever have to be quiet to be loved." He leaned into me, resting his head on my side. "I like our kind of family better," he said. "Me too, baby." One evening, while folding laundry, I finally opened the box Sarah had given me. The Bravery Kit. Inside, under the bath bomb and candle, was a small envelope. I hadn't noticed it before. I opened it, expecting another note. Instead, I found a photo of us in college, on a hiking trail, faces flushed and laughing, arms around each other's shoulders. On the back, in her handwriting, "You've always known the way forward, even when you were afraid. Keep going." I pressed the photo to my heart. 3 months after Liam's hospitalization, Thomas moved into a small house just 10 minutes from us. Modest.
Cozy.
With a porch swing Liam immediately claimed as his new reading throne. "I made the down payment from my own account," he said firmly. "She doesn't know where I am. I don't want her to." "Are you sure?" I asked. "I've never been more sure of anything." He filed for divorce that same week. My mother's silence was her loudest message yet. No apology, no call, not even a letter. And somehow, that was easier to accept than any half-hearted attempt at reconciliation. Because I finally understood. She loved the version of me that served her narrative, not the woman I had become. And I didn't need that love anymore. I had my son. I had my strength. I had a new kind of family, one built on presence, not pretense. By the time autumn rolled in, our lives had begun to settle into a new rhythm. The mornings were cooler, Liam's cheeks pink as he zipped up his jacket for school. Each day felt a little more normal, though normal no longer meant what it used to. We had crossed through fire and come out different. My new job was going well, challenging, creative, fulfilling. I worked from our dining table most days, my laptop surrounded by mugs of tea, Liam's drawings, and sticky notes with story ideas. My boss was understanding and human in a way I'd rarely encountered in the professional world. You get your work done and you're raising a Rex in the meantime, she joked in one meeting. You're my hero. On weekends, Liam and I explored every science museum within 100 miles. We kept a list of dino sightings and ranked museum gift shops by snack quality and plush toy selection. He carried a sketchbook everywhere, drawing fossils and labeling bones like a mini paleontologist. Candace and I had started texting regularly, then phone calls, then dinners with the kids. She began sharing things I'd never known, about the pressures she felt, the years of anxiety she'd hidden under curated perfection, the ways she'd bent herself into shapes to keep Mom happy. I think I lost myself in the roles, she said one night.
Daughter, wife, mom.
And now, I'm just trying to figure out who I am without all that approval. You're more than the good girl she trained you to be, I told her. You always were. I just didn't know I was allowed to be, she whispered. Thomas came over every Sunday now. Sometimes he brought dinner, sometimes just conversation and puzzles for Liam. He was more present, more animated than I'd seen him in years. He looked 10 years younger, like breathing had become easier. He once said to me quietly, while Liam built a Rex out of Legos at the kitchen table, "You saved both of us, you know." I shook my head.
No, Dad.
You saved yourself. I just gave you a reason. One Saturday in October, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. I opened it on the balcony after Liam went to bed. Dana, I don't know what to say to you anymore. You made your choices. You walked away. You've turned everyone against me with your dramatics and exaggerations. But I want you to know something. I only ever wanted what was best for you. I'm sorry you couldn't see that. Mother. There was no warmth, no ownership, just the same icy detachment wrapped in self-pity. I folded the letter once, then again. I didn't tear it. I didn't respond. I just placed it in the back of a drawer and closed it. It didn't belong in our world anymore. Liam had his 6-month checkup shortly after that. His pediatrician smiled after listening to his lungs and said, "You've got a pair of healthy bellows now, young man." Liam grinned. That means I can run fast again, right? Like a velociraptor, I said. He asked if we could celebrate with ice cream, and I said yes without hesitation. Sitting on a park bench later, a cone dripping in one hand, he turned to me. Do you think the hospital misses me? I laughed. I think the nurses miss your dinosaur facts. He thought for a second. I miss the beep sounds a little. Really? They made me feel like I was still here. I nodded, swallowing the knot in my throat. I used to watch the numbers when I couldn't sleep, he said. They made me feel safe. I watched them too, I whispered. Every single one. We sat in silence a while longer, watching kids play on the jungle gym, the golden leaves falling slowly around us. Then Liam looked at me. Do you think Grandma will ever say sorry? I don't know, I answered honestly. But that's not your job to wait for. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. I'm not mad at her, he said. I just don't need her to like my mess anymore. I reached for his hand. That's the bravest thing I've ever heard. Halloween came. Liam dressed as a paleontologist and insisted on carrying a clipboard and field samples in his candy bucket. The neighbors greeted him with delight, offering double helpings for the kid who beat pneumonia. In early November, Kelly and her daughter Zoe invited us for a survivor's dinner, as she called it, chili, cornbread, and stories of their worst ER visits. You have your tribe now, she told me, topping off my wine. They may not have your DNA, but they'd show up in the middle of the night with soup and duct tape. I smiled. That's more than I can say for most of my blood relatives. Same, she said, raising her glass. Here's to family you find. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely okay. One night, not long after, Liam curled up beside me on the couch, sleepy-eyed and warm. Mom. Yeah, baby. When I was sick, did you ever think I wouldn't wake up? I hesitated. Yes, I said finally. But I also believed you would. Because you're the bravest person I know. He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered. I wasn't scared. Not really. I think I could feel you near me. My throat closed. I was there, I said. Every second. I know. He drifted off against my arm, breathing soft and even. And I realized this was what it meant to rebuild a life. Not to return to the old one, but to create something entirely new. Something that could survive the fire. December came quietly. Our windows fogged up in the mornings, and Liam started counting down to winter break with a makeshift calendar he'd made out of construction paper and dinosaur stickers. Each morning, he peeled one off with theatrical flair. 16 days till freedom, he'd announce. That's enough time for 3 volcano projects. Life, for the most part, had returned to a steady rhythm. We were still careful, watching his energy, making sure he rested, but the fear that once hung over us like a storm cloud had dissipated into something lighter, manageable, almost ordinary. Candace and I had grown close in a way we never had before. She invited us over for soup nights and family movies. She even stood up to Mom again after hearing about the latest passive-aggressive remarks sent through Aunt Ellen. I told her if she wanted to talk about you, she could do it to my face, Candace said over coffee one afternoon. She didn't. She left early and said she needed to reassess her alliances. Like she's the Queen of England. I laughed. Honestly, I hope she does reassess them. She might realize she doesn't have many left. Candace smiled. You know, for the first time in my life, I don't feel afraid of her. That struck me. Because I didn't either. Thomas, true to his word, continued showing up. He was at our place so often that Liam started calling Sunday afternoons Thomas time. They'd build Lego sets, do science experiments, or sit on the porch and stargaze through the telescope. One night, after Liam had gone to bed, Thomas sat across from me at the kitchen table with a stack of manila folders. I finalized the divorce last week, he said. I blinked. Already? She didn't contest it. Really? She tried to bluff at first. Talked about lawyers and settlements. But I think deep down she knew. She'd lost the fight long before it started. He looked tired but lighter. I moved everything I could into accounts she doesn't have access to, he continued. And I've updated my will. It all goes to you and Liam. I swallowed hard. Dad, you don't have to. I want to, he interrupted. Because I missed a lot of years. I watched you grow up from the sidelines. And I didn't stop her from hurting you the way I should have. He paused, eyes glassy. But I see now. Love that's controlled isn't love at all. And I want to spend whatever time I've got left doing it right. I reached across the table and took his hand. You already are. We decorated our small apartment with paper snowflakes and a hand-me-down fake tree from amber. Liam insisted we make every ornament ourselves. He called it Dino Moss, and we spent 3 weekends cutting out felt stegosauruses and gluing glitter to T-Rex cutouts. On Christmas Eve, we had a small dinner with Candace and her family. Thomas brought pumpkin pie, and we all wore pajamas, even the adults. There were no formalities. No matching outfits or perfectly posed pictures. Just laughter. Board games. The hum of a real, imperfect, present kind of love. That night, as I tucked Liam into bed, he handed me an envelope. For you. Inside was a drawing. It showed the hospital bed. Me holding his hand. Machines in the background. But the center was us, surrounded by a glowing bubble, with the words written in his 7-year-old scrawl. You kept me here. I couldn't speak. I just wrapped my arms around him and held him tightly. I love you, buddy, I whispered. To the moon and all the way back. He nodded into my neck. Even when I'm messy? Especially then. A week into the new year, I received a formal-looking envelope in the mail. I opened it slowly, my stomach tightening. It was from my mother's attorney. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a release form. She had officially removed herself as Liam's education sponsor and revoked her prior financial support. The final step in what she had warned me would happen. No note. No signature from her. Just the formal detachment of a legal professional doing someone else's emotional dirty work. I sat on the couch and stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it and filed it away under records. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. Because by now I knew what love looked like. And this wasn't it. A few days later, I got a call from the principal of the local public school. I understand Liam may be transitioning from private school, she said. We've reviewed his records, and I'd love to set up a tour. We met her the following Monday. The school was smaller than his old one, less polished. But it buzzed with warmth. The walls were covered in student art. The science room had a 3D printed dinosaur skeleton. Liam lit up. This one feels like me, he said as we walked out. That was all I needed to hear.
We enrolled him the same week.
One night, while watching a documentary about mother-son animal pairs, Liam turned to me and said, "If we were penguins, I'd sit on your feet forever." I laughed, pulling him close. That's exactly how I'd carry you through anything.
He looked up at me.
Even if I got really heavy? Even then, I said. Especially then. Spring came early that year. The snow melted into small rivers along the curbs, and crocuses began pushing up from the thawed ground like tiny declarations of hope. Liam started riding his scooter again, tentatively at first, then with full, reckless joy. Every time I saw him coast down the sidewalk, curls bouncing in the wind, I remembered how close we'd come to losing all of this. One evening, after dinner, he asked, "Can we have a birthday party this year?" "Of course," I said, caught off guard. "Yours." He nodded. I wanted to be outside. With dinosaurs. And everyone. Everyone, I teased. Even the mailman? Especially the mailman. He gave me stickers when I got home from the hospital. We set the date. I let Liam plan almost every detail. The cake, lava-shaped. The guest list, neighbors, friends, teachers, no questions asked. And even the soundtrack. He insisted on a mix of dinosaur roars and Taylor Swift. On the day of the party, our small backyard overflowed with people. Amber brought cupcakes. Kelly and Zoe arrived with a giant inflatable raptor. Candace and her kids came in matching Team Liam shirts. Thomas manned the grill, wearing an apron that read Grillosaurus. Zara flew in just for the day, surprising Liam with a fossil excavation kit and me with a knowing hug. "You did it," she whispered. "You rebuilt everything." I smiled. Not everything, just the parts worth keeping. In the middle of the festivities, Liam tugged on my hand. "Come look," he said, dragging me toward the picnic table. I made something. It was another drawing. Stick figures again. A sunny backyard. Balloons. A dinosaur DJ booth. And in the center, Liam holding hands with a dozen people, each one labeled. Amber.
Kelly. Zoe.
Thomas. Candace.
Clara. Me.
Above it, in bold, uneven letters, he'd written, "My real family." I knelt down beside him, heart full to bursting. "It's perfect," I said. He smiled. "You're not mad. I didn't put grandma on it." I shook my head.
No, baby.
"You drew the people who show up." He nodded, satisfied. Then ran off to start a dinosaur trivia contest with Zoe. Later that evening, after everyone left and the sun had dipped below the rooftops, I sat on the porch with Thomas, watching Liam chase fireflies. "Did you ever think it would turn out like this?" I asked him. He sipped his iced tea, eyes on his grandson. "Not exactly, but it's better." I nodded. "Me too." We sat in silence for a while until he added, "Your mother called last week." My body stiffened, but I said nothing. She wanted to know if I'd come to my senses. Said the family was falling apart. And? I asked. He chuckled. I told her maybe it was falling into place. I let that sit between us, the truth of it echoing louder than any argument ever could. Months passed. Liam adjusted beautifully to his new school, made new friends, and developed a fascination with space alongside his dinosaur obsession. He started asking deeper questions about stars, about God, about why some people stop talking to you even when you love them. I answered as best I could. Sometimes people don't know how to love in a way that feels safe, I told him. Will Grandma ever learn? I don't know, I said. But it's not your job to teach her. He thought about that for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I think I want to love the way you do. I wrapped him in my arms. I think you already do. One day in late summer, I received a card in the mail. No envelope. No name on the return. Just my name in familiar cursive. Inside was a single sentence. I hope he's well. That was it. No apology. No ownership. No warmth. But this time, I didn't feel anger. Or disappointment. I felt distance.
And peace.
I didn't respond. I placed the card in a drawer I rarely opened and moved on with my day. On the anniversary of Liam's hospitalization, we visited the hospital to drop off handmade thank you cards to the PICA staff. Liam wore a cape and called himself the Survivorsaurus. Maya was still there. She cried when she saw him. He looks amazing, she whispered. We still talk about him. Liam beamed and handed her a card that read, Thank you for keeping my beep beep going. She hugged us both. As we left, Liam turned to me and said, That place isn't scary anymore. Why not? Because we beat it. And we did. Not just the infection. Not just the long nights of uncertainty and alarms. We beat the lie that love is earned through perfection. We beat the silence that used to echo in place of real connection. We beat the expectation that family must look a certain way to be valid. We beat the fear that standing up for ourselves means we'll stand alone. We beat it all. Together. Because while my son fought for his life, I fought for something else. I fought to protect him, not just from illness, but from the legacy of control and conditional love. And in the process, I found something I never thought I would. A new beginning. A family born not of obligation, but of choice. A life that's real. Imperfect.
Honest.
And ours.